I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm here with my friend Kunal Anand, who is the CTO from Imperva. Hi, Kunal. How are you doing?
Hi Ed, how are you? It's been a while and you look great.
Well, ditto. I think that you and I have probably chatted in every setting you can imagine, from restaurants in New York to
Right.
labs to video to studio. Now we're doing it during the pandemic, right in November 2020. But it's great to see you, and you and I will travel through some different themes. I want to talk to you a little bit about tech, a little bit about your business, and even some things that maybe connect with the current times with people who are kind of working from home and so on. But before we do, there's probably a lot of people tuning in who may not know much about the company. Tell them a little bit about the new Imperva. You guys have really evolved over the years into quite an impressive company. Why don't you share a couple of things about the company?
So I got to Imperva 2 years ago via an acquisition, and I've been watching this company pretty much my entire career. And a lot of people probably don't realize, but Imperva's been around for 18 plus years. And the company was founded on protecting applications and data. And one of the neat things about it was, this company helped conceive of and bring to market technologies and products like web application firewall and database activity monitoring, and really pioneered those spaces and iterated and evolved and just added more capabilities over the years. And one of the neat things is, I joined Imperva 2 years ago due to an acquisition. Imperva acquired a company that I co-founded and served as CTO of called Previty. And when I joined Imperva, one of the key things that I wanted to do when I got here was, how can we build a narrative? How can we build um, sort of a story, if you will, that explains really cleanly who we are and what we do? And if you look at our acquisitions that we've done over the last couple of years, it's been Previty, where I came from, Distill Networks, which is a bot management company, and then most recently, JSonar, which is an organization really focused on data security and really trying to do data security in a very different way compared to the way Imperva kind of conceived it, almost 2 decades ago. And our goal at Imperva is to protect data and all the paths to it. And those paths could be from the network, through applications, through APIs. Because Ed, you said this to me, and I keep using this all the time. Why do networks exist? To get to apps, and why do apps exist? To get to data. And people have to protect data, and the way we want to help people protect it is either at the data store itself or all those paths to it. Again, could be from apps, APIs, microservices, etc. So from a product perspective, when you go beyond the solution and you actually go and you look at the actual products that do all of those things, it could be things like DDoS at the edge, web application firewall as well, things like API security, bot management, runtime application protection inside of the application. And then when you get to the data side, it could cover all sorts of things. And that could be sensitive data management, it could be around privacy, discovery and classification, and user rights monitoring, threat prevention, cloud discovery. We do all of those things. And I think that's one of the neat things about Imperva is that we do all of these sorts of really cool things that are impactful for all organizations. And where we're going as a company is starting to combine these capabilities. Like, what happens when you start to bring data security elements back into app security? What happens when you can connect the entire stack? You can start to solve for more interesting problems that organizations have today.
It's funny. We sit here sort of in the at the cusp of the third wave of COVID, in late November 2020. And it's interesting in our industry, in cyber, it's been somewhat immune from the problems that a lot of our,
Mhm.
our peers in other industries have dealt with. It seems like Imperva has really done well the last year. I mean, not that anybody would, wish well because of some, but
Mhm.
it seems like the work from home and the idea that things would become more virtual and distributed and seems like that plays right into the business that you guys are in. It's probably been a very interesting ride, both with the challenges of dealing with all the changes in society, but also, just the company being such an important part of keeping people going. Share with me a little bit of that journey the last few months of business success and also some of the challenges in dealing with, a very difficult pandemic.
Yeah. So like every business, we're going through a digital transformation. We're going through modernization efforts. I will say that, like everyone else, there was a joke that I saw a while ago. What C level or what C um, major organization transform faster? Option A, CEO. Option B, CTO. Option C, CIO. Option D, COVID-19. And I think everyone was forced to transform and modernize much, much faster. And
Yeah.
when you look at it, I really think that organizations of all shapes and sizes are under lots of duress because they have to move workloads. They may have to move data, or they're creating newer types of data stores now inside of these cloud environments. So they're in this giant rush to the cloud, and we're no exception, right? We've been in that process for several years. And then aside from moving and lifting and shifting, there's a big skills gap that exists today, right? So I have to move these things, then I have to secure all of these things. And now that I've rigged up all these security sensors and capabilities, what do I do with it on the other side? Like just because I'm producing all these analytics and all this telemetry, now what? Make it usable for me. And then there's just so many vendors in the ecosystem that you've got to stitch all this stuff together. And so, I go back to that skills gap, that skills issue that I really see today. And for Imperva, we've done really well this year in terms of our growth and our
Yeah.
success because we focus on three outcomes, and those three outcomes for our customers are: number one, securing apps and data anywhere and everywhere. That could be on-prem, in the cloud, everywhere in between. And if you look at those acquisitions, they really are apps and data that could be of any shape, any size, running anywhere. Then the second outcome is reducing that fatigue that organizations have with respect to managing alerts, all the noise from all those different technologies that they have. So instead of showing you that we see a million interesting things, we'll just show you need to focus on these 10 things that truly matter for your business. So allowing people to move much faster. And then the last bit is closing the loop. It's one thing to detect, it's another thing to actually go and protect. And so from the JSonar acquisition, we now have a SOAR capability, and we've always had APIs for all of our products, but we've never had a way to automatically drive those APIs. And where we're going as a company is when we detect an issue, we can automatically suggest a policy, we can automatically suggest a rule change, where we can go in and push it anywhere. So it could be at the WAF, it could be inside of the app by a RASP, or anything on the data side. So for us, the key message that we hear from our customers is we're transforming, help us transform. And the best quote I heard recently from a customer was, Imperva helps me become more agile. It's the first time I've ever heard that from an organization. It's not that we're helping them become more secure. That's table stakes. It's the fact that they can make these moves. It's the fact that they have the confidence to make these moves, knowing that we're right behind them. But COVID's had a pretty big impact on us. I mean, in the wake of the pandemic, we had to learn how to work from home. I mean, I mentioned already that we've got edge, app, and data. We've got hundreds of engineers in the company. How do you all of a sudden go from in-office work to globally distributed work from home? And in the face of the pandemic, we continue to innovate. We introduced bot management, we introduced client-side protection around the application supply chain, released the industry's first cloud data security SaaS solution around AWS. We did an acquisition around JSonar, and we're going to be introducing in just a couple of weeks RASP for Lambda. So our very first foray, I guess you could say, into serverless protection and serverless capability. So we learned how to work from home. We learned how to do all these things the same way that I'm sure every other organization has. But it's been interesting to invest in tooling and invest in all sorts of things to scale up to meet those challenges.
I was on a panel recently where it was one of these, what is digital transformation things, and I was dreading it because usually those are so vacuous. It's like, but somebody said something that was like great, and it stuck with me. I think it was even a question. Somebody said, would you agree that digital transformation is driven by agile, APIs, and security? That was a question, and I thought about it a little bit, and I said, that is a really, really good observation, because that is like, if you had to pick 3 building blocks, those are in my top 5. They might be my top 3. That's what you guys do. Like you really are in a good position. Like, you know what I mean when I say digital transformation, everybody uses that term. And if it's just used vacuously, it's kind of a buzz term. But if it really is, hey, I've got to figure out how to do business, and we've got some changes that have occurred. We're working from home. I don't have
Hmm.
people in the data center. This is a different thing, and I can't wait. Then the ability to deal with open interfaces and to move quickly, be agile and to worry about not getting hacked. That's really what it comes down to. So I would imagine those themes are all things your customers must be bringing
You
up,
know,
particularly APIs.
yeah, that side alone is interesting. So the stat that I pulled recently, so for those that don't know, we've got 44 data centers globally distributed, and we inspect somewhere around, could be 1.5 to maybe sometimes even 2 trillion requests every single month. So you can imagine we see a lot of internet traffic.
Yeah,
Um,
starting to look like a
we
carrier there with all those data centers.
Yeah, well, definitely more in the works. One of the neat things is we built a globally unified network. What most people do when they build out these networks, and you'll appreciate this. Um, a lot of people have these fragmented networks where a certain part of the network is allocated for doing
Yeah.
things like DDoS scrubbing, a certain part of the network is allocated for content delivery, a certain part of the network is security protection. I was so excited when I got to Imperva and I learned that the team built a technology and appliance really called what we call a behemoth. And the behemoth is basically our single stack, or it goes into our overall single stack protection capability, where we can do things like DDoS and CDN and security in one single pass. And we do it in all those 44 pops. So every pop is doing DDoS scrubbing, every pop is doing security. And what's really cool is we implemented things like SD-NOC and SD-SOC this year. So SD-NOC of being able to automatically deal with capacity management and traffic management, and SD-SOC of automatically tuning security rules and policies. So it's not super loose, it can actually tighten down based on actual usage. So we saw this year about, right now we're processing around 1.5 trillion requests every single month, somewhere a little north of that. But we've seen a 20% increase since the beginning of COVID, and most of those attacks are bad bots. And or if they're not bad bots, they could be attributed to more volumetric attacks, and volumetric attacks that are just basically trying to cripple the application or just sort of like slow the app down in some way. Mostly disruption, less around actually like trying to steal information, but more around like trying to inundate the application or just kind of take it down. And the most interesting thing that I saw recently, a hacker friend of mine, if you will, told me that you can rent a really nice and large botnet and for less than 20 bucks, and you could take down whatever you really want to. And it's just a function of cost, right? How much are you willing to pay to inundate someone? So we've set some pretty cool traffic records this year, and I assume that's just going to keep going as the sort of new normal continues on.
I think that, but at Tag Cyber, we talk to a lot of small companies, and I'm often pretty excited about what they do. But one thing that you don't get with a small company is the benefit of scale. And as you guys build out and see more data, you hate to just sort of disadvantage the smaller companies, but as you get bigger, you see that it's like the pieces of a puzzle filling in.
Hmm.
I had that benefit when I was at Intelcom for so long, that I could see things that you couldn't possibly pick out. You just get this weird half-built mosaic, but as you get more data,
Hmm.
it's really quite powerful. I think there's always a place for innovative startups to dance around the big guys. That'll always happen. But
Hmm.
when you get to a company the size of Imperva with that kind of scale, you really can't be beaten when you've got that kind of visibility. That probably feels good because I know you've come from a number of different size companies, but when you see the benefit of all that data, you say, wow, that is really quite powerful. So I'm
But you
glad you
can't
guys are seeing that.
but you can't rest either. I mean, this is like one of the things that when I got here, I wanted to keep pushing was around innovation and just keep pushing around. Um, Even though we are at this scale, we're actually not that large of an engineering organization. I mean, we do a lot of work with not as many people. We just try to invent intelligent ways to do things. Like, so instead of having analysts scale up uh, a router or like augment uh, rules. we'll just automatically do it. So we'll rely on things like machine learning. We'll rely on statistical analysis to do that work for us. So that's the one thing that I really appreciate about here. But we can't rest on our laurels. I mean, there's newer types of things that are happening, and there's a full decomposition of the stack that's happening right now. That, I mean, if we're mindful about it, the whole way that organizations deploy applications and data has just fundamentally changed, will continue to change. The perimeter is changing. There's elements like zero trust and SASE now that have become more top of mind for organizations. And I know those are buzzword terms, but
Yeah.
to many folks, but it's just a different way to think about what I would say the next generation topology is going to really look like.
Question about maybe just the company and the team you manage with work from home and with the sort of just lingering pandemic that we're dealing with. How have you managed the team? Like, how's everybody kind of responded to some of the work changes? I think you're sitting in an empty office right now, the baby home crying with mom. But
Yeah.
congratulations, by the way, on number two. But what's been? Have you had to change your management style a little bit the last few months?
Yeah, we've been doing things like giving the organization recharge days every single month, where people can go and just unplug and they can go take a day off. And there's some tech companies that are like, you can go and do this once a quarter, or you can do this once every X months or whatever. We tend to just try and give more of that time back to people. We encourage people to take more breaks, mental health breaks. In my calendar, I actually have allocated in there what I call MHBs, mental health breaks.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
there are times in the day where I just need 15 minutes or 30 minutes to just go and regroup. And maybe it's just checking email, maybe it's just taking a breather, walking around, or connecting with friends or family. But you need to take those breaks. And we've been so mindful of that. We want more people inside the company to take those breaks to recharge. I would say that's been the biggest struggle, is getting people to realize that they should take those breaks, that it's not about being a superhero. It's not just about cranking and getting the work done. The work will always be there. The word I like to use is self-kindness, right? Show yourself a little kindness, give yourself a little break, focus on your health. And that's an area that we continue to focus on. It's not just got to grind to get the work done. There's all sorts of great tools. We rely heavily on group chat. We use audio and team meetings, chats as well, like everybody else. I don't have to name a product or a vendor. Everyone knows who's out there. But we've used the same tools as everybody else, the same productivity tools as everybody else. We just have to be a lot more mindful, especially in our organization where we are really distributed. Almost all of our engineering team exists in Israel, minus Previty and JSonar and Distill, which are in North America. Everyone else is in Israel. So you've got hundreds and hundreds of folks in Israel. I'm based out of Los Angeles. So how do you manage time zones? How do you manage? I mean, it's a 10-hour time zone difference right now for us. So how do you manage that, knowing that people are not going to be in the office at certain times? People are going to be at home. So being more respectful of the fact that people won't always have their cameras on. Sometimes I'll jump on in morning meetings with the team, and my kids will be all over me. So for those that don't know, I have two under two, and my eldest will actually be crawling all over me, screaming or wanting to play a game, and that sort of thing. She's made plenty of appearances on meetings and waved at people and said hello, and people just have to be okay with that, and to sort of relax and realize that we're all humans and we're all going through it together.
It's tough. So what do you think? What's coming? You think that in the coming years, well, let's start with coming months. Do you suspect that things will shift? As as a CTO of a very cool company, what do you see from a tech perspective, and maybe even prediction about just in the business environment? You guys deal with a lot of companies. Well, what do you say? Do you see the economy and some other things maybe stabilizing soon, or do you think we got some tougher times? What's been your observation?
I can say that the bigger companies are a little more tentative. Getting to talk to CIOs, CISOs of
Conservative, very conservative. Yeah, I see
extremely
that.
conservative.
Yeah,
I see a lot of consolidation right now. I've started to see that underway for the last few months, where a lot of larger organizations are now kind of looking to minify the number of vendors that they're working with,
Mhm.
and they are getting more conservative, and so they're going to be more aggressive about trying to get better pricing for themselves. I see them obviously making huge shifts to the clouds. And when I say clouds, I don't mean like just AWS or Azure, but a blend. I see so much multi-cloud now; it's pretty amazing. And it's usually, a combination of AWS plus something else. So AWS has that sort of first mover advantage, and everybody may pick them, except if you're like a retailer, then you're just sort of like opposed. You can't go with them, and you got to go with someone else. So I see that all the time. The newer types of things that are so top of mind for me that I keep hearing about, one is around API security. Hear so much about this. I can't go an AppSec conversation without someone asking me to do a deep dive on where we're going and what's going on in the overall space. I think the challenges that we hear about from folks right now is, where are my APIs? Tell me what I've actually deployed. They don't even know what they have out there, and they don't even know the information going over these specific APIs. So talking about bringing a more data-centric approach to API security, I hear a lot about that. I hear a lot of requests of Imperva to go and build capabilities like that. So we're underway. We're going to be doing something in the realm of API discovery and whatnot. The other area for me that I think is so impactful, and maybe it's just because in the US we don't seem to talk about it as much, is data privacy. And we're a global company, and we do a lot of business in Europe. We do a lot of business in APJ, and obviously in Europe, because of regulations like GDPR, and in Australia, we've seen a huge push for people to embrace things, especially in financial services. Open banking is a really big initiative that we see in Oz. One of the things that I find fascinating is in America, we don't seem to actually talk about privacy. We don't seem to spend a lot of time thinking about elements like right to be forgotten. I'm based out of Los Angeles, so things like CCPA, right? That the Privacy Act has a huge implication, and a lot of people are sort of wrapping their heads around that now. So I would say the short to midterm was going to be more organizations, I think, starting to care deeply about privacy because they're going to be forced to. And for those that don't, well, I think they're going to be in a pretty tough spot in the sort of midterm if they don't start to stand up elements around a data security program that is not about DAM. And again, that's where Imperva came from. It's not necessarily about activity monitoring. It's about knowing who's accessing the information, what information is actually out there, how much information is being accessed, where did all that information go? So you start to touch on elements like data lineage and right to be forgotten. And, there's so many amazing use cases, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the US in the coming months. That's for sure.
I think you're going to be pretty busy with your team the next coming months and years, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. I think we're all getting a little antsy to get back to some semblance of normal. Let's root for the vaccine companies to get something out quickly, get it all deployed. And Kunal, on behalf of just everybody watching and my team, it's such a delight to connect with you. You have such great ideas, and it's nice and very calming to listen to you talk about AppSec, because that application in particular has been something that in cloud that remains, a high risk in a lot of companies. So I'm glad you guys do what you do. It's very good for all of us. So again, thank you so much for sharing. I assume website, Imperva's website, would be a good place to get more information.
A great place to go. So Imperva.com has got treasure trove of information. And then for those that want to reach out, my email is pretty simple. It's kunal@imperva.com.
So you will now get spammed to you'll be calling me saying, Ed, take that video down.
At Previty, I had the letter K at Previty.com. And people always think it's cool to have, short emails and short names. My Twitter handle is actually the letters KA. That's it.
Yeah.
And the amount of noise, it's a good one, but like the amount of noise that you get. And what I found was, and this is going to sound so crazy, people were trying to tweet people like Kanye West, but they would put him at the end of their tweet. And because of the character limitation at the end, there would be a truncation. And so people would be like trying to send a note to Kanye West or who knows who, and it would just cut at the end. and they would show up in all of my notifications. I ended up having to just disable notifications. I ended up unfollowing everybody. So my Twitter is effectively useless at this point because having a two-character name just isn't really worth the effort unless you like find a version or a variant of two characters where they're not as occurring in the English dictionary or not as popular in the name.
Well, I can assure you, you're not missing anything. So,
Awesome.
well, it's nice to see you. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And again, I hope you're doing well. This is obviously you asking me a bunch of questions, and I hope you, your family, and your team at Tag Cyber are doing well. I mean, we're huge fans over here of what you're doing, and you and I have known each other for years, and I've been getting to watch what you've been building, and super excited to see where you're going and where you're taking it, and excited, just really excited and rooting for you pretty significantly over
Wonderful.
here.
Well, that's so nice of you to say. So thanks again. And for the rest of you watching, we'll see you next time.